So many game worlds have captivated me growing up. Worlds I explored for countless hours trying to examine every nook and cranny to find just that maybe possibly one extra secret or detail I missed. And I doubt few games would stand up in that regard to the likes of Super Smash Bros. This isn't just one world from one game series, it's many worlds from many game series, and as we've progressed over time, there's been more and more crossover. We'll probably talk about more Smash Bros in the future, but for now, why don't we go back and revisit my personal favorite of the series? Let's explore the small details and things you may have missed. And to help me cover it, I'm bringing in Tevlev.
Hey everybody, it's your best friend Tevlev, and there's a lot of stages to look at today. Jiggy couldn't do it all himself. He was right for bringing in me, the stage guy, to help look these over.
Into the game we go. This is Wandering Worlds Super Smash Bros. Melee. Get ready for a blast from the past. This video is sponsored by RetroPlanet, your destination for a nostalgic gaming convention experience on October 18th through the 19th in Rosenberg, Texas. Discover over 150 vendor and artist booths featuring retro video games and consoles from Atari to PS2, trading card games, artists and creators, classic toys and collectibles, TV, movie, and cartoon memorabilia, retro electronics and PCs, throwback apparel, ages 10 and under get in for free. Head on over to RetroPlanetTX.com for all the info and get ready for an awesome weekend. Let's do this. Let's start off with the adventure exclusive stages where it all begins. The Mushroom Kingdom. Navigating through this level, it's easy to miss all the small details. Right at the entry, we notice the pipe is actually boarded up. I really wonder why though. In fact, the pipes all along the way are boarded up. Could this be to keep intruders out of the Mushroom Kingdom? Pressing forward, we can see a crudely painted sign indicating the way to Peach's castle. Then we can see bricks we can smash, and I wondered about this particular formation of bricks because it seems pretty random. I can't seem to see it make sense as a reference to anything, but it is very specific. If you have any ideas, drop it in the comments. And really the only other things of significance on the pathway are the enemies, which are Goombas and Koopas, and these manic toads running back and forth. The real cool part of this level is in the background. So looking off into the background, we can see some large, big mushrooms, some fully modeled bricks, another green pipe, but most importantly, a small golf course in reference to Mario Golf. And peeking out just in the background is an image of Peach's castle. That's about it for the adventure side of the Mushroom Kingdom. Let's see what the next adventure exclusive stage has for us.
The Underground Maze is one of the adventure levels. The goal is to find the hidden Triforce while avoiding the psychedelic Link battles. If you come across one of these pedestals, it'll trigger a battle with Link. The middle section with the redeads is one of the more interesting parts. It looks like the inside of a castle tower, and it has these gated up windows in the background. What's back there? It's so mysterious. Moving towards the bottom left, you enter a torture chamber full of torture devices. This looks to be inspired by the bottom of the well from Ocarina of Time. And then next to it is an area with lava you must ascend up, and that loops back around to the main room. And the rest of the map, like on the right, is mostly just caverns and tunnels. There's not a lot to see that you wouldn't normally see if you're just playing normally. But not to say it's not cool, because the Zelda style is emulated very well here, and if you zoom out all the way, which you don't normally get to do, it really looks like a Zelda 2 palace, which is definitely the inspiration for this map. It even has the same song. That one's for all the Zelda 2 fans out there. There's dozens of us.
Zebes Escape. We got a code red here, a stage that has us moving simply upward over a time limit. It's kinda cool to zoom in on the platforms and see that some of them are less big pieces of metal and actually have some energy beams between them, creating the surface to stand on. Then at the end, the platform has a 3D modeled bridge behind it. It really helps give it some depth. It kind of has an X-Men look to it, and if we zoom out all the way, we can actually see that the backdrop, where the code red is located, actually has sort of a technological look to it, with some biological looking goo in the background. It's kind of neat. But not much to see other than that. F-Zero Grand Prix. Now this is a cool one. Though we only move along the end of the track and it's quite a run for us, we can see the track is actually 3D modeled all around the entire way, and the cars will follow it. Another neat detail is if you look at the texture under the pathway, it's super techy. We will actually see this texture several times throughout the game. It has lights and patterns that sort of resemble circuitry. And they didn't really have to add these details in the background, but we can see some oil rigs and cities and glass domes. The ones closer are 3D modeled with a lot of detail, and as you get further back, they turn into just PNGs. This is a common trait among Smash stages to save on resources, but it honestly always looks good. The last and final detail to explore in this level is the vehicle models. Each car is highly detailed and it's super cool to see them all, and even the Crash Out model. Moving past the adventure stages and onto the basic stages, we'll look at them all individually, starting with Peach's Castle. This is the most detailed I've ever seen Peach's Castle. In the courtyard, we can see a beautiful bed of flowers, not normally really that visible to us in normal gameplay. Moving across the bridge, I love we have details at the front door and a rug, though we don't pay much attention to it as we're playing. There's also a gate down below in the water, which is an added detail to this model I think is super cool. The actual texture of the castle has star patterns all over it, and the detail in the stained glass window is a faithful update to Mario 64. I think the biggest thing to realize about the details in this game is just how even if something is not meant to be seen, they still add details and complete the picture quite often. Even if it's something as simple as some flat PNGs just filling out the background, it's very cool to see. And let's not forget about this crazy mechanical bullet bill that explodes. Epic. Let's tackle the other Mario stages while we're at it. Rainbow Cruise. This stage doesn't have a ton to it. The most detailed part is the ship you ride on at the beginning. The texture work is actually really cool on the ship with some gold inlays, propellers on the back, the giant feathery wing doors, and most importantly, this anchor, because it's always important to have an anchor when you're riding on a flying ship. Moving past the ship, we have some platforms with cool looking jewels and gold inlays, and if we look underneath, we can see so many of these platforms had the checkerboard pattern on them. Going closer to some, we can see a marble texture with little power stars on the side. This stage is just a lot of platforms for the most part, but it does have one tiny detail off into the distance easy to not notice. This small little village of houses and trees is so tiny. Super Mario Bros. Mushroom Kingdom. This stage is a dope throwback to the classic game. Like most Smash stages, it's built on layers. The first layer consists of 3D modeled blocks and platforms. Here, we see the edges of the stage defined by signs that say, Danger. Immediately behind and outlining this 3D section is 2D images of the Mario Bros. Bricks and castle to fill it out, and Lakitu, who is flying around in a pattern, dropping enemy hazards. Just behind him on the next layer is Koopas and Goombas pacing back and forth on mushrooms, with subtly animated clouds above them. We then have a small layer of clouds and a few mushrooms behind that, and a static image of hills in the back. All of this comes together to complete the picture. This is wizardry, and it looks incredible. Also, these pipes lead to nowhere, but it would be cool if they were connected at least. Mushroom Kingdom 2. Rounding out the last of the Mushroom Kingdoms, we have a similar situation to the previous one. The layers this time consist of the 3D modeled section we fight on, some animated grass sprites, and a couple of moving platforms from the waterfall that's animated behind us. There's a small Pidgeot riding on a magic carpet that presents as a hazard, as well as Birdo, who occasionally pops in. The second layer behind us really is sprites from Mario 2 with some animated cherries on top. And then we have a sprite forest backdrop, sort of staggered to give it some depth. And then clouds at the very back. Again, it creates a really cool effect with a lot of depth. Nothing else to really report, so moving forward to the DK stages. Kongo Jungle, Kongo Falls. Not too much to see here from what is presented from the front. There's lots of shrubbery and trees filling out the level. The ones in the front are 3D modeled, but as we get toward the back they switch to PNGs. It's got a fairly detailed treehouse, and the water effects in this world are insanely awesome. One thing that's special about this level though is it's actually massive. It's probably one of the widest stages in the game, and as you can see as I'm zooming out, it goes unnecessarily far onto the left and to the right. It doesn't have that much depth, but it has tons of width. The next stage is Jungle Japes. This one has some cool details. Before I do the front, let's take a look toward the back. We have light rays brushing through the darkly colored trees. That creates a really pretty effect. One subtle detail, so hard to see, is there's actually little 3D modeled birds that fly across the sky occasionally. That's a detail in the heat of battle you'd probably miss. Moving back to the front, we have the obvious claptrap jumping out of the water as it flows by. It's a fairly detailed model. Zooming into the cabin, we see candle lights with little moths fluttering around them, but more importantly, we see Cranky Kong pacing back and forth in his cabin. This is just a black shadow looking silhouette, as well as one for his chair. And looking even closer, we have an image of some beakers and flasks, as well as a small bookshelf and a dresser with pots in it. Also, one super subtle detail is the outhouse has ventilation. Kongo Jungle 64. The coolest thing about the N64 version of Kongo Jungle is the sunset effect on the stage. It really looks cool with the silhouette of the trees. You'd think they'd be layered, but really we have one image with just the transparency adjusted in some of them to give an illusion of depth. The light effect just seems to be a glow effect right on the image of the sun on the flat image, not actually light. Then we have 2 layers of trees to add some more depth. And then the stage itself, with 2 trees, a few platforms, and a solid wood texture. Peep the little barrels and plants to give the stage that little bit extra of detail. We do have a flat barrel underneath that will launch us up, and occasionally some neckies that appear and fly around. This is one of my personal favorite Smash stages. I just love the vibes. Moving to Star Fox.
Corneria. Let's take a close look at the details on the Great Fox itself. You can see the wear and tear of the Star Fox logo, indicating a history of space travels and battles. And if we swing around, we can actually see that the inside is modeled a little bit. It's got a little runway for the R-Wings. And the R-Wings are also flying around the stage. Not only that, but the Wolfins as well. They function the same, but the details are a little different. Like the booster colors are accurate to the original game. The background tidbits is really where this stage shines. Often when playing on Corneria, you're moving so fast, you're not looking at the background, but there's a lot going on back there. For example, General Pepper's big face shows up on some signs passing by, and you might have seen these before, but they say Pepper Corneria. I was never able to read that playing this back in the day. And the image uses his exact model from Star Fox 64. Hey, that's kind of neat. And there's other little details, like the textures on the buildings having several variations. And there's some random broken and warped rebar, and just like the F-Zero stage, there's some 3D modeled pathways. And then surrounding Corneria, there's a river. Overall, this stage is packed with little details, and it's great.
Venom. The other Star Fox stage, Venom, is probably one of the most interesting stages in the game. This is one of the few constantly moving stages. We battle on top of the Great Fox as it traverses the planet. If we break away from the set view, we see the world as like a giant path that we cycle through. It almost reminds me of the way Animal Crossing had functioned on the DS. It seemingly goes on forever. It's filled with quite a bit of detail too. Sections with lava and hot rocks, a dark cave, random technological looking structures. There's a lot to take in here. The effect at the end is very cool too. Yoshi's Island. The first Yoshi stage doesn't have a whole lot going on. The simple blocks that rotate as you hit them, the warp pipes, and several 3D modeled sections that layer with some modeled apple trees in the background. There is also a sprite of Lakitu carrying a 1-up mushroom on a fishing line, and a sprite of Bullet Bill flying in the background. The one thing it has that's a bit interesting though, is like I said in most cases, Smash Bros will use PNGs to create depth and add something in the background. But for some reason on this stage, all of the giant hills, or whatever you want to call these, are 3D modeled. It must just be simple enough that it didn't hinder performance. Let's move on to the Super Happy Tree stage. This uses the PNG effect quite a bit. I love the cardboard storybook feel. This truly captures the essence of Yoshi's story. All of the animated images like the cloud, the message block, and the happy tree itself are layers just behind the main modeled stage. In the far back, we have the skybox as one giant image wrapping around the sides, and the little animated sprites of the Shy Guy carrying fruit and the Goonie. Moving on to the best looking Yoshi stage, in my opinion, Yoshi's Story. This one is filled to the brim with details. The cardboard aesthetic for one, several 3D modeled platform sections. There are cardboard cutout clouds dropped all around the background that are animated and subtly dance in the backdrop. Lots of shipping container stickers and tape slapped on the cardboard pieced together world, and perhaps the coolest detail, the moving waves. All of these are flat images but layered a ton and give the stage so much depth. It's a very neat and heavily stylized effect. The main platform has some cool details too. I really dig the stitching effect on the top yarn-like looking patterns. It makes it look grassy. The actual cardboard texture almost looks like dominoes, and I can't forget our little friend Pachyderm in the Wandering Clouds. Great Bay. Great Bay has a lot of super cool details too. Starting with the main platform of the Marine Research Laboratory, we have pots and a sign that has some Hylian on it. One thing I found absolutely insane is that the inside of the research laboratory is actually modeled. There is no reason why there should be any modeling in this whatsoever, but there is, and it's epic. We have the owl statue and of course Tingle himself. He's got a little crudely drawn map in his left hand. I wonder what it could be. The giant turtle also makes an appearance at some point, as well as the four giants and the moon in the background. These are all things you totally notice in this one, but what about the fact that the stage goes far off to the left and actually shows the barricaded area for Majora's Mask, as well as going as far as having houses on the shore modeled and details of umbrellas and beach towels laying around, not to mention the cool 3D modeled seagulls. But probably most surprising is the fact that there are things modeled under the water's surface. We have the base of the Marine Research Lab and some boulders and loose sections of the lab. The shoreline also appears to have detail and depth. As well as there's dramatic lighting underneath. It seems like maybe there was an intention for us to see under here, but we really don't. It's wild the amount of detail that went into it. The Temple. The Temple is one of the largest stages in the game. It's filled to the brim with castle-like structures, some intact and some fallen and destroyed. Probably the most interesting piece here is we see some Hylian language outlining some of the pieces. It's the version of Hylian from the era without a hero, and when translated, it says, Smash Brothers. That is a crazy detail. There are also some small details of the actual structures like this gated door you really wouldn't see unless manipulating the camera. But to me, the backdrop is also very interesting. On the bottom of the stage, you can look down and it has an interesting texture. I sat here and looked down from above trying to decipher if it's one of the Zelda overworld maps. I honestly couldn't tell if it is, but if it is, it would only be a piece of it repeated. I bet it is though. Let me know in the comments if you can figure it out.
Pokemon Stadium is a great stage. It has several variations and it dynamically transforms in the middle of battle. The default layout is simple. It just has a Pokeball in the middle, and then the screen in the background indicates which stage it'll morph into next. The outer part of this arena is the audience, and if you zoom in, it looks like a bowl of fruity pebbles. If you take a look outside of the stadium, way into the background, you can see some 3D modeled buildings, but one of them says Pocket, and it has a little Pokeball for the O, and Pocket Monsters is Pokemon's Japanese name, if you didn't know. Transitioning to the fire variant, we can see a burnt up cabin with a missing door. And that door can actually be found like 3 feet in front of it. I also found this tree fascinating. At first I thought the stumps were conjoined, that's called inosculation, but now it looks like it's just been cut in half. There's also a cool animated ember texture going on here too. The grass variant has this river running through it, and if you ever wondered, oh, if I was a regular person in the world of Smash Bros. Melee, how would I get on top of the tree fort? Well, you just climb up that thing, that little rope ladder. Hey, that's kind of cool. The water version has a windmill and a small artificial pond with geysers shooting up the platforms, which is similar to Fountain of Dreams. And now finally the rock variation, which is my personal favorite, easily the coolest. You may have noticed the minecart, but actually this whole little section is a mining site. Even this broken tube makes me think of the hydraulic mining method that they did during the gold rush. They would use water to mine for gold, if you can believe that. And I think this checks out because there's even a broken water tower right there too.
Poke Floats. Another one of my favorite stages from this game. Poke Floats is exactly what it says. We're jumping high in the sky between big Pokemon balloons. The background is a mountain range with clouds on the ground to show we're up high. The Pokemon the floats represent are Squirtle, Onix, Psyduck, Chikorita, Weezing, Slowpoke, Porygon, Wooper, Sudowoodo, Snorlax, Venusaur, Seal, Wobbuffet, Unknown, Goldeen, Lickitung, Chansey, and finally, Geodude. All the floats are highly detailed and have their own unique track pattern on screen. This stage is just pure fun. Green Greens. Green Greens is an iconic Kirby stage. We can see a rainbow and tons of super bright colors. It's cool if you zoom out from above it. It almost looks like a planet with star-shaped islands on it and one giant island. They each have mountains that are 3D modeled. There's just something so charming about the stage, from the trees to the little picket fence. Kirby stages just generally seem to have ice cream-like textures, as the platform itself does look like a waffle cone.
Fountain of Dreams is a bedazzlingly beautiful work of art. It has a lot of ice cream looking structures, but the whole thing kind of looks like an ice cream cone. The background looks like a cotton candy wonderland, and if you get close, you can see these little shapes within the textures. A little hard to see. Musical note, heart, star, I see a fish. The color scheme of this stage is just immaculate, truly beautiful. See all that water spilling over the edge? That's nothing compared to the drool from my mouth because the stage is so beautiful.
Dreamland. This stage is based on Green Greens, which is why it appears as sort of a simplified version of it. This was originally on the Nintendo 64 Smash Bros. And features Wispy Woods, the sentient apple tree. The things that make this stage a bit different from its counterpart are the fact that, if you look closely at Wispy, his face is actually sprites layered in front of the tree model. Yep, totally separate. So if you move around, you can see his face is just floating there. Also off in the background, we can see Dreamland and occasionally Bronto Burts fly across it. And King Dedede, who, if we actually follow to the edge of the stage, another Dedede sprite shows up, flying in the other direction at the same time. Onett. Another massive stage. Though the play area isn't really that giant, this stage has both depth and width. Here are some cool details. Aside from the drugstore and the houses you see, if you move back just a bit, you can see some bicycles and a little outdoor flower shop. Moving back even further, we have a baseball field. Believe it or not, there's way more we don't see. To the right of our view, we have another house and a game store. In front of the house, there's a sign that says, Onett message board. Caution, a black van driven by this guy has been spotted racing recklessly through town. Be careful. And then we have an illustration of that person. And speaking of that van, we have several vehicles in addition to that. The taxi with an Onett license plate, a blue car, a pink one, and then the black van that says Tonzura on the side, representing the Tonzura brothers of the Runway 5, like the illustration shows. Going further back in the stage, we have tons of 3D model houses, and as we get further back, they transition to PNG images, as well as this little crane. We can see past the houses and we have the hospital. And moving even further past that, not only a few more houses and a cave, but we also have the meteor crash site from Earthbound.
Fourside is loaded with a ton of content. I think the most impressive thing here is the 3D modeling work done on the buildings in the front. The detail goes down way further than you would ever think to look. And fun fact, the same texture that's used in the Pokemon Stadium backdrop blankets this one as well, but the variation and the 3D models of the buildings and everything makes it look unique. You would never think they reused the texture. Poke's little helicopter looks cool and the UFO looks nice. Even close up, they look great. Okay, that's all the time I've got. This is Tevlev signing out, and Jiggy, thank you for having me. And by the way, can you edit me into the helicopter flying away now into the darkness? I hope you learned something new today. Make sure to play lots of Smash Brothers for me. Bye! Bye, everybody!
Mute City. In a similar way to Venom, in Mute City, we stay on a platform that navigates through a track. The biggest difference here, though, is rather than this rolling sort of vertical loop, we're actually navigating a racetrack. Lots of 3D modeled things in the background, and a couple signs that say Smash 2, in reference to this being the second game in the series. There's a lot of similarities to the Grand Prix section, though this is definitely a more refined track model as we go through the entirety of it, rather than just a side view or a piece of it. Big Blue. Sort of an in-between of the two, Big Blue we fight primarily on the big ship that does in fact loop on a track with an infinite looping backdrop. Again, very similar to the Grand Prix. The signs here all say Big Blue with dolphins on them, probably as a reference to the GameCube being referred to as the Dolphin in development. Like the Great Fox, there's a lot of detail on the ship, and it's pretty cool. Icicle Mountain. Icicle Mountain is probably one of the few stages that we pretty much see everything as we play. There really isn't anything special in the background or any sort of trickery here. It's pretty straightforward with wooden planks and ice platforms. Just don't forget the little guys that try to attack us. Flat Zone. Flat Zone is definitely one of the coolest stages in the game. The whole thing is modeled as we zoom out and we see a nice Smash Bros written in the corner. On the old Game & Watches, they would actually write the name of the game you were playing on that corner, so it's very fitting. The actual game that was being played that this is based off of is one called Helmet. Interesting enough too, this stage makes your 3D fighter flat if you look closely. Brinstar. Brinstar is filled with things that'll have you just saying, ew, like the big brain in the distance. Could there be a connection between this and Andros and Star Fox 64? This is the only appearance these giant brains make in any Metroid game, and it's not even a Metroid game. They're exclusive to Smash. Going beyond the brain, this stage has a ton of depth for no real reason. Go down this cave and turn the corner and we're done. The whole cave-like structure itself is filled with acid. And looking at it underneath, the acid does reveal how far some of these structures go. It probably just had to be like this to compensate for the varying levels of acid. The main section of platform we fight on is kinda gross too, with a beating heart looking thing and alien-like barnacles. We can see some ruins with some totem-like faces on them, and a Chozo statue that will randomly get up and walk around for a second. Moving on to the Brinstar Depths. It's actually very similar with its textures and objects, just on a bigger scale. The lava here is more traditional as opposed to the acid, and things generally feel a bit more interplanetary. The background structure has sort of a subtle tech pattern on it, and the middle of the stage has a giant brain like the one we saw before. The biggest thing here though is obviously Kraid. He's super intimidating in both size and general appearance. His scales have a really cool texture, but above all, what are these? Are they spiked belly buttons? Nipples? I need to know. He's fully modeled from head to toe, though we don't actually see his feet. But they do in fact exist. Battlefield. Battlefield is an interesting stage because it's one of the few Smash Bros. Inspired stages, not pulling from any source material other than the mind of Sakurai. And we see a techie looking pattern on the platforms that has colorful beams of energy lighting it up occasionally. The background is this crazy warp black hole. It reminds me of Majora's Mask when you put a mask on. And perhaps most importantly, we have a giant orb encased by a crystal that seems to be the source of energy on the stage, and we seem to see what appear to be hands clutching it. A nod to Master and Crazy Hand, I presume? Though it does have mad Ridley vibes. If we look super close on the platform as well, we see what almost looks like some sort of language pattern on the side. I'd assume it's not like a generic tech pattern because we see that within the platform itself, and it looks different. Very interesting. Closely tied with Battlefield is Final Destination. It follows a similar vibe to Battlefield stage, though if you look at it from above or below, it looks like a mechanical wonder. It seems to have a black orb at its core, and there's a stream of white energy powering it. It almost gives Kami Lookout vibes. Oh, and did I mention? It's in space. This is some sort of cosmic platform taking us to who knows where. Now, let's move on to the bonus stages. The first stage I want to look at is the Trophy Bonus Stage, a simple space-like background with a planet and the famous Smash Shields. Not too much to say after that. Race to the Finish is a bit more interesting with some background effects and the alternate paths you can take. Essentially, you follow a main path until it branches into 3. The top being this techie looking room with spikes on the wall. The middle being where the floor is, yes, lava. And finally, this giant looking power room. I like to think that this is what's generating the power for Final Destination. Each exit door is also a static noise texture like a classic CRT TV. And let's not forget the All-Star Mode rest area. It's a very wide park with a grass texture. It's got some mottled trees until the very back, and a small little fountain with a park bench and street light. That's about it. We do have 3 special trophy tussle stages as well. The Goomba, Entei, and Majora's Mask. These are all essentially the trophies, just as walkable fightable stages. Not much to say, but the detail in them is quite nice. And the backdrop is really like Majora's Mask here. I told ya. The Home Run Contest. This stage is pretty simple as well, with paths leading out. After about 800 feet, I don't see anything. The backdrop is a stadium very similar to Pokemon Stadium's crowd. And now, let's move on to the Break the Target stages. Honestly, a lot of them are not that interesting with just some simple model swaps and layout differences, but there are a few that have some cool details, so I want to highlight those few. Starting with the Ice Climbers. Their Break the Target stage looks like their classic NES game with the colored blocks, and a condor at the top. Luigi's stage is unremarkable except for the fact he has a Nintendo GameCube smack dab in the middle of it. Peach's has a custom swinging platform with a Pokeball on it, and Pikachu's has mini stadium looking platforms and a 3D Pokeball inside a block with some wild grass on top. Yoshi's has that cardboard effect again, always welcome, and Zelda's has some sections that look like the Triforce. And a crazy quick detail about the level select menu. Did you know that you get 3D wireframe holograms of each level right behind its name? It's hard to notice, but it's there. This is what each stage looks like. It's pretty cool. And the final piece to look at, the Trophy Collection Room. In the American version, we see the back shelf with the NES, Game Boy, GameCube, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, and N64 with a copy of Smash Bros. In it, and the box at its side, as well as 2 plants, a TV, and a small frame picture that says Smash Bros. If you beat the game, you can actually see a row of Game Boy in the same room on the top shelf. And did you know, if you switch the language to Japanese, it changes the background? There's a Virtual Boy now. Some sunflowers, and the NES and SNES are replaced with the Famicom and Super Famicom variants. The Super Famicom appears to even have a Smash cart in it that never existed. Well, that's all I have for you. I hope you'll drop a like on this video to help spread it around, and please go support Tevlev as well. Show him some love. He makes a lot of really cool Smash content, so go check him out and subscribe. And also, while you're at it, why not subscribe to this channel if you're not already? I hope you enjoyed Wandering Worlds Super Smash Bros. Melee. Until next time, have a good one. Oh, and maybe check out another video of mine. Just a thought.